Welcome to our deep dive into a dark chapter of African history. Today we uncover the stories of 23 African presidents assassinated for opposing Western interests since 1963. Across Africa, nations were kicking out colonialism and grabbing the reins of their own destiny. But you see, here's the thing about freedom. It's not a free pass. It's not some all-inclusive resort where the former oppressors serve you cocktails with tiny umbrellas. No, freedom is earned and then it's defended. France especially wasn't too keen on letting go. They had this whole Francafrique thing going on, basically trying to run the show from the back seat. Buckle up, people, because we're diving into power, greed, and some seriously shady dealings. This is about understanding how these assassinations still shape the Africa we see today. Want to celebrate African heritage? Check out our Africarized store for apparel, accessories, and home decor. Click the link in the description to buy now. Let's kick things off in Togo, West Africa. Sylvanus Olympio, the dude leading the charge, he wasn't about to let France keep their hands in Togo's pockets. One of the first things he did, ditched the French colonial currency system. France? Not impressed. They had this cozy little setup called the CFA franc, basically kept their old colonies financially chained to the motherland. January 1963, a group of disgruntled ex-soldiers storms the presidential palace, guns blazing. Olympio assassinated, and the guy who just happened to lead the coup, 𝐂𝐤𝐴𝐤𝐴, a former French legionnaire. Convenient, right? The official story? Olympio was a dictator, needed to be taken out, but many believe it was a straight-up power grab, orchestrated with a little help from France. Next stop, Nigeria. The year is 1966, and the man of the hour is General Johnson 𝐂𝐤𝐿, Nigeria's first military head of state. Now, 𝐂𝐤𝐿 inherited a country more divided than a plate of suya at a family reunion. Ethnic tensions, religious clashes, you name it. Nigeria had it in spades. 𝐂𝐤𝐿's big idea. Unify the country, create a more centralized government. Noble goal, right? But here's the thing about trying to unite a nation with a history of colonialism. Sometimes the cracks are just too deep to paper over. 𝐂𝐤𝐿's unity decree, it ruffled some serious feathers. Certain groups saw it as a power grab, others felt marginalized. July 1966, just 6 months after taking power, 𝐂𝐤𝐿 is on a trip to Ibadan. Suddenly a group of soldiers storms his location. 𝐂𝐤𝐿 and his host, the governor, are kidnapped, and, well, let's just say they weren't seen alive again. The official story. Another coup, this time led by disgruntled officers from a different ethnic group. Let's shift gears to the Horn of Africa, Somalia, 1969. Abdirashid Ali Shermarke, the democratically elected president, is trying to pick up the pieces of a nation fractured by colonialism. His vision, a united Somalia, strong and independent. He dreamed of a greater Somalia, bringing together all the Somali-speaking people scattered across the region. But that dream, it didn't sit well with everyone. Somalia's neighbors, they weren't too keen on giving up their own Somali-populated territories. October 1969, Shermarke is on a trip to a remote town in northern Somalia. He's greeting well-wishers when suddenly gunshots ring out. Shermarke is shot dead by one of his own bodyguards. The official story, a lone gunman driven by personal grievances. Chapter 4. Abeid Amani Karume, the Zanzibar Revolution and its bloody aftermath. Picture this, Zanzibar, a tropical paradise off the coast of East Africa. 1972. Abeid Amani Karume, the man who led Zanzibar to independence from British rule, is trying to build a socialist state. He's all about land redistribution, nationalizing industries, sticking it to the man. Now, Karume, he wasn't playing around. He was serious about this whole socialism thing, and he wasn't afraid to ruffle some feathers. April 1972, a group of gunmen storms Karume's office, spraying bullets everywhere. Karume is killed instantly. The official story, a coup attempt by disgruntled army officers. But many believe it was a carefully orchestrated assassination, backed by those who felt threatened by Karume's socialist agenda. Chapter 5. Richard Ratzimandrava, a short-lived presidency, a lasting mystery. Fast forward to 1975, Madagascar. Richard Ratzimandrava, a military man with a taste for power, has just seized control in a coup. But here's the twist. Ratzimandrava, he's not your typical power-hungry dictator. He's got this whole national reconciliation thing going on, talking about unity and progress. He even reaches out to the World Bank, trying to secure loans and investments for Madagascar. But there's just one tiny problem. 𝐂𝐤𝐴𝐺, he's also got this crazy idea about economic independence. He wants to renegotiate the deals Madagascar has with France, the former colonial masters. February 1975, just 6 days after taking office, 𝐂𝐤𝐴𝐺's car is ambushed. He's riddled with bullets, dead before he even had a chance to warm the presidential seat. The official story: a lone gunman, a disgruntled soldier with a personal vendetta. But the timing, the circumstances, it all just seems a little too convenient, don't you think? Chapter 6. François Tombalbaye, The Price of Defiance. Let's jump back to 1975, this time to Chad. François Tombalbaye, the country's first president, is a man on a mission. He's trying to modernize Chad, to steer it away from its colonial past, but there's just one small problem. Tombalbaye, he's got a bit of an authoritarian streak. He's not exactly a fan of dissent, and he's got this habit of, shall we say, silencing his opponents. April 1975, a group of soldiers storms the presidential palace. Tombalbaye is captured, and let's just say it doesn't end well for him. The official story: a coup d'etat led by disgruntled soldiers fed up with Tombalbaye's authoritarian rule. But the whispers start almost immediately. Was France involved? Did they have a hand in orchestrating Tombalbaye's downfall? Chapter 7. Murtala Mohammed, the general who spoke truth to power, Nigeria again, 1976. This time it's Murtala Mohammed in the hot seat. A general who took power in a coup. Murtala wasn't your average military strongman. He was a man in a hurry, determined to clean up the corruption that plagued Nigeria. He fired corrupt officials, reorganized the government, even moved the capital city from Lagos to Abuja just to shake things up. But here's the thing about shaking things up. You're bound to rattle a few cages. And Murtala, he wasn't afraid to rattle the cages of the powerful, even if those cages belong to, shall we say, international friends. February 1976, just 6 months into his rule, Murtala's car is ambushed on his way to work. He's assassinated in a hail of bullets, his short but impactful reign cut tragically short. The official story: a failed coup attempt by a group of disgruntled soldiers. Chapter 8. Marion Ngouabi, the Marxist experiment and its enemies. Let's journey to the Republic of the Congo, 1977. Marion Ngouabi, a charismatic leader with a revolutionary spirit, is trying to build a socialist state in the heart of Africa. He's nationalizing industries, promoting education and healthcare, and aligning himself with the Soviet Union. March 1977, a group of armed men storms Ngouabi's residence. A firefight erupts and Ngouabi is killed. The official story: an assassination attempt by a rival faction within Ngouabi's own party. But many believe there was more to it than that. Chapter 9. Emperor Haile Selassie, the Lion of Judah falls. 1974, Ethiopia. Emperor Haile Selassie I, the Lion of Judah, a man who ruled for over 4 decades, is facing the twilight of his reign. He's revered by some as a god king, despised by others as a ruthless dictator. But one thing's for sure: Selassie is an absolute ruler in a world that's growing increasingly impatient with absolute rulers. Now Selassie, he's got this air of invincibility about him. He's survived coups, famines, even an Italian invasion. But time, as they say, catches up with everyone. September 1974, a group of military officers calling themselves the Derg launch a coup d'etat. They overthrow Selassie, placing him under house arrest. And then a year later, Selassie is found dead in his palace. The official cause of death: prostatic hypertrophy. The whispers start almost immediately. The legacy of shadows. So there you have it. 9 assassinations, 9 leaders who dared to challenge the status quo, 9 stories that expose the dark underbelly of international politics. Coincidence? Maybe. But when you look at the pattern, the timing, the beneficiaries, it's hard not to see a bigger picture emerging. These leaders discovered their mission: to liberate their nations from the shackles of colonialism and neo-colonialism. But their missions were cut short, their voices silenced. The fight for true independence, for self-determination, is often a matter of life and death. Don't forget to like and subscribe to Africarized for more content. Our first stop takes us to Egypt, the land of pharaohs and pyramids, to meet Anwar el-Sadat. Sadat was a hero of the 1973 Yom Kippur War, but the Camp David Accords changed everything. The peace treaty with Israel made him a hero in the West, but a traitor in the Arab world. In 1981, during a military parade, Sadat was assassinated. The official story blames Islamic extremists, but some believe it was due to his peace treaty. Sadat's story is a cautionary tale about international relations and the fine line between peacemaker and pariah. Next, we travel to Liberia, a nation founded by freed American slaves, to meet William R. Talbot Jr. Talbot wasn't your average dictator. He uplifted the poor and gave a voice to the marginalized. He criticized apartheid in South Africa, which upset the West. His real sin? Economic reforms in Liberia. Foreign companies exploited Liberia's resources, while Liberians saw little benefit. Talbot decided to spread the wealth. In 1980, a bloody coup overthrew Talbot. The official story, internal discontent, but many believe foreign powers were involved. Hold on to your hats, folks, because we're heading to Burkina Faso to meet a true revolutionary, Thomas Sankara. He came to power in 1983 and turned the presidential palace into a public library. Renaming the country Burkina Faso, meaning land of upright men, he was fiercely independent and anti-imperialist. He wasn't afraid to call out Western hypocrisy. He kicked out the IMF and World Bank, promoting self-reliance and local pride. In 1987, he was assassinated in a coup led by Blaise Compaoré. Sankara's dream of an independent Africa died with him. Our journey takes us to the idyllic Comoros Islands, where we meet Ahmed Abdallah. Abdallah was the first president of this newly independent nation, but his rule was short-lived and tumultuous. He nationalized French-owned companies, which didn't exactly make him the darling of Paris. In 1989, Abdallah was assassinated. The official story is that he was killed by a disgruntled bodyguard. But rumors persist that foreign mercenaries, possibly hired by those who wanted a more pro-Western leader, were involved. We return to Liberia, where the shadow of the 1980 coup still loomed large. Samuel Doe, the young master sergeant who had overthrown Talbot, was now in charge. But Liberia's troubles were far from over. Doe, once hailed as a liberator, soon proved to be just as ruthless and corrupt as his predecessor. His rule was marked by ethnic violence, human rights abuses, and rampant corruption. The economy, already struggling after Talbot's assassination, went into freefall. In 1990, amidst a brutal civil war, Doe was captured and executed by rebel forces. His death plunged Liberia deeper into chaos, sparking a decade of conflict that left the country in ruins. Our next stop takes us to Algeria, a North African nation still haunted by its brutal war of independence from France. Mohamed Boudiaf, a hero of that war, was a symbol of Algerian resistance and a staunch advocate for democracy. In 1992, with Algeria on the brink of civil war, Boudiaf returned from exile to lead the country. He was a beacon of hope, but his vision threatened those benefiting from chaos. Just 5 months after taking office, Boudiaf was assassinated live on television by one of his own bodyguards. The true motives remain shrouded in mystery, a stark reminder of the fragile nature of peace. Our journey takes us to Burundi, where ethnic tensions have long simmered beneath the surface. Melchior Ndadaye made history in 1993 when he became the first democratically elected Hutu president of Burundi. Ndadaye reached out to the Tutsi community, promising to share power and build a more inclusive Burundi. But Ndadaye's vision of a united Burundi was a threat to those who clung to the old ways. In October 1993, just 3 months after taking office, Ndadaye was assassinated by Tutsi extremists within the military. His assassination plunged Burundi into an abyss of ethnic violence, a cycle of revenge and retribution. Our journey takes a tragic turn as we arrive in Rwanda, a small nation forever scarred by the horrors of genocide. On April 6, 1994, a plane carrying Rwandan President Juvenal Habyarimana and Burundian President Cyprien Ntaryamira was shot down as it prepared to land in Kigali, Rwanda. Both presidents were killed instantly, along with everyone else on board. The crash sent shockwaves through Rwanda and beyond, marking the beginning of one of the darkest chapters in human history. Within hours of the crash, Hutu extremists unleashed a wave of violence against the Tutsi minority and moderate Hutus. The assassination of President Juvenal Habyarimana, a Hutu, was the catalyst for the Rwandan genocide. While the exact perpetrators of the plane attack remain unclear, the blame was immediately placed on the Rwandan Patriotic Front, a Tutsi-led rebel group. Habyarimana had maintained a system of ethnic favoritism towards Hutus, sidelining the Tutsi minority. Within hours of the plane crash, Hutu extremists launched a well-organized and systematic campaign of violence against Tutsis and moderate Hutus. The world stood by, paralyzed by inaction as the genocide unfolded. Our journey takes us to Niger, a vast, landlocked nation in West Africa, where poverty and instability have long been the norm. Ibrahim Bare Mainasara, a former army colonel, seized power in a military coup in 1996, promising to bring stability and prosperity to this impoverished nation. But Mainasara's rule was marked by authoritarianism, corruption, and human rights abuses. In 1999, Mainasara was assassinated by members of his own presidential guard. His assassination plunged Niger into further instability, highlighting the fragility of democracy in a region grappling with poverty and corruption. Our next stop takes us to the Democratic Republic of Congo, a nation blessed with vast mineral wealth but cursed by a history of colonialism, conflict, and exploitation. Laurent Désiré Kabila, a longtime rebel leader, emerged from the jungles of eastern Congo in 1997 to overthrow Mobutu Sese Seko, the US-backed dictator who had ruled the country for over 3 decades. Kabila's nationalist rhetoric and his attempts to assert control over Congo's resources put him on a collision course with Western mining companies. In 2001, Kabila was assassinated by one of his own bodyguards. Many believe the plot was orchestrated by foreign powers, who saw him as a threat to their economic interests. We travel to Guinea-Bissau, a small impoverished nation on the west coast of Africa, where political violence has become a tragic way of life. João Bernardo Vieira, a former revolutionary leader, ruled Guinea-Bissau with an iron fist for over 2 decades, surviving numerous coup attempts and assassination plots. His rule was marked by authoritarianism, corruption, and brutal repression. In 2009, Vieira was assassinated by members of the military who accused him of corruption and human rights abuses. His assassination highlighted the fragility of political stability in Guinea-Bissau. Our journey takes us to Libya, the oil-rich North African nation ruled for over 4 decades by the enigmatic Muammar Gaddafi. Gaddafi was a revolutionary who came to power in 1969, promising to liberate Libya from Western imperialism. He nationalized Libya's oil industry, using the country's newfound wealth to fund social programs and support liberation movements across Africa. But Gaddafi's authoritarian rule and his support for terrorist groups made him a pariah in the West. In 2011, as the Arab Spring swept across North Africa, NATO intervened militarily, launching airstrikes against Gaddafi's forces. Gaddafi was captured and killed by rebel forces sponsored by American government, France, and NATO, marking the end of an era in Libya. Our final stop takes us to Chad, a landlocked nation in Central Africa ruled for over 3 decades by Idriss Déby. Déby was a close ally of France and a key partner in the West's fight against Islamist militants in the Sahel region. He ruled Chad with an iron fist, crushing dissent and rigging elections. In 2021, Déby was killed on the battlefield while visiting troops fighting rebels in northern Chad. His death raised concerns about a power vacuum in a country already grappling with poverty and the threat of Islamist militancy. As we've journeyed through these tragic stories, one thing becomes clear. These weren't just isolated incidents. These assassinations have had a profound impact on African development. They've led to civil wars, economic collapse, and continued foreign exploitation. And who benefits from this instability? Often it's the same Western powers who claim to be helping Africa. It's a vicious cycle, a new form of colonialism dressed up in the language of aid and development. These political assassinations have left a lasting mark on Africa's political landscape. They serve as a stark reminder of the challenges that African leaders face, both from within and from external forces seeking to undermine their country's sovereignty. Don't forget to subscribe to Africarized for more videos like this.